Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on the second webinar in the Effectively Engaging Community and Ending the HIV Epidemic through Digital Technology webinar series. To go ahead and get started, we are going to share the screen. All right. So this is Christina Santana from NASDAQ, and I'm gonna pass it on over to my colleague, Nicole Elenoff.
Thank you, Christina, and welcome again to everyone. Today I am joined by Christina Santana, my colleague, as well as our community partners from the Kaiser Family Foundation's Greater Than AIDS campaign, Robin Kistler and Jenny Anderson, who will be presenting later on in the webinar. This meeting is scheduled to last for 1 hour. If you have joined us via GoToWebinar, you should see an introductory slide on your screen. If you do not see it, please use the chat feature to let us know. Please note that all of your lines will be muted to ensure good sound quality. We will engage in a question and answer period at the end of the webinar, at which time I will unmute all lines. If the lines do not unmute, please put your question into the question box. If you have any questions throughout, please utilize the question feature located in the toolbar on your screen. This meeting will be recorded and will be made available to you. Our objectives for today's webinar are that participants will be able to explore where social media fits into social marketing, understand how impactful social media is in the everyday lives of folks and why media matters, and to identify how HIV public health engagement and messaging have been used in social media and technology. Before I pass the webinar over to Christina, I'd like to welcome Maria Alvarez from the CDC to share a few words. Maria?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, colleagues, recipients, and partners. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for the opportunity to join today's webinar. On behalf of CDC's Division of HIV/AIDS Prevention Program Branch, it's my humble privilege to join you today to highlight our collaboration and support towards our funded programs, partners, and communities. In the spirit of partnership, we intentionally bring to you this second webinar to support our Ending the HIV Epidemic Technical Assistance Series, which was launched, as many of you know, on June 25th. On the line with us as well today, we also have Ms. Erica Dunbar, the Prevention Program Branch Health Department and CBO lead. Ms. Dunbar will be joining and listening in on today's webinar. Thank you, Erica. Moving forward, our game plan remains to work collaboratively with NASDAQ and other federally funded CBO providers to respond to the capacity building assistance needs and themes identified during the 1906 draft EHE plan review process, and most importantly, to partner with NASDAQ and others to provide you with technical assistance, webinars, and services that will continue to support your EHE community engagement and accelerated planning activities. As you heard, today's webinar is entitled Exploring Digital Resources and Strategies to Expand HIV Services to Communities. We aim to take a deeper dive into the various digital and online platforms available to jurisdictions and how they can best support and facilitate community engagement in HIV prevention and care services. CDC remains committed to our ongoing partnerships and the provision of technical assistance services. Recipients, community members, and stakeholders from the local EHE Phase 1 counties are also encouraged to participate in today's and future webinars or upcoming TA opportunities. In closing, I would call your attention quickly to the importance of adding new voices during your local EHE planning efforts as we continue to strategize, mobilize, and implement effective community engagement and accelerated planning activities. And then in the context of COVID-19, we understand we will continue to modify existing approaches, expand innovation, and the use of technological strategies to sustain our momentum towards ending the HIV epidemic while meeting program goals and working to keep our staff and communities safe. So thank you for your time, attention, and interest in today's webinar. I will turn the webinar back to the NASDAQ TA team, and please do continue to remain safe.
Thank you so much, Maria and Erica, for joining us. And now I'd like to pass it on to Christina, who will be discussing social media for social marketing.
Thank you, Nicole. So as we all know, social media continues to be a relevant tool for health departments in their work educating the public on critical health information and where services can best be provided. However, we use the word social marketing and social media a lot, and there's usually no distinction or time to make the distinction between the two. So we just wanted to take a moment to kind of lay out the general definitions around both social marketing and social media. So social marketing we view as the use of marketing theory, skills, practices to achieve social change. So this is a very founded approach and tool that is based in a lot of principles around marketing theory and is highly used within public health. For social media, we define it as websites and applications that enable users to create and share content or to participate in social networking. As we all know, health departments over the years have faced challenges in effectively reaching communities and engaging communities and have looked and turned towards social media as a tool to potentially reach those communities. However, it does require a lot of strategic planning as well as resource development to effectively implement it. As such, we've seen some social media campaigns face limited public interaction and then are generally designated for activities for junior staff or interns within agencies. This webinar is really going to look at how to make social media planning, the use of social media more intentional as you look to engage community, as well as really recognize the intense amount of work that may need to be undertaken in order to effectively integrate social media for community engagement. So just a little bit what we see in the data. So this slide shows that both YouTube and Facebook are the two online platforms that are most widely used by US adults. This does look different when across various age groups and, as you can see, across various demographics. Facebook remains one of the most widely used social media sites among adults in the United States. Roughly 7 in 10 adults, so about 69%, say that they've ever used the platform. And we also know that again varies among what I'll just say young folks. So really thinking about ages 13 to 18 as well as 18 to 30. What we see is that as more adults have been joining Facebook, younger folks have been looking to other social media platforms. However, given across, when we look at all demographics together, Facebook is still one of the most widely used platforms, as well as one of the widest platforms people use to get their information from. The other one that I want to note is YouTube, and YouTube is really the only other online platform that matches Facebook's reach. And what we see is that 73% of adults report using this video sharing platform. But it's also, we should also note that other online platforms, most notably Instagram, Snapchat, have an especially strong following, again, among young adults. Also note that we don't see on this graph the use of TikTok. It is not reflected, but it is one of the fastest growing social media platforms that we see particularly young folks engage in, and it has this ability to reach across various avenues, and by that I mean you can do video with it and you can do messaging with it in a way that is not really seen in YouTube and Facebook. And we've really seen it actually grown in during the pandemic, since it is something that folks can do at home more easily and can connect to their friends or family members. So within this slide, all of this information comes from Pew Research Center, but in a 2018 survey, they found that some Facebook users had recently taken steps to moderate their use of the site, such as deleting Facebook app or from their phone, or just in general taking a break from the platform for a certain amount of time. However, despite these findings, and they have found that Facebook users as a whole are just as active on the site today as they were even a year ago. So roughly 3/4 of Facebook users, about 74%, visit the site daily, including about half who do so several times a day. Other platforms are visited somewhat less frequently. Some say, 51, some around 51% of YouTube users say they visit the site daily, which is a slight increase than what was recorded in 2018. But we do know that really it's not just about going to the site once, but it's how often folks are seeing messages or some sort of communication on these websites, and that tends to be the highest within Facebook. So I feel like we all may have a good understanding of what Facebook is, but just for clarification, so Facebook is the most widely used social media platform and has been adopted by really public health organizations for health promotion and behavior change campaigns and activities. It has more than 2 billion monthly users and is really accessible globally. Across all countries, all demographics. And the platform can be really valuable in terms of what information you want to get out to your community or your clients or however you're using the domain for, because it provides different avenues in which you can send information out. So you can do it through videos, through photos, through a message, through sharing, or doing Facebook Live. So it's really a fantastic way for agencies, organizations, individuals, advertisers to virtually reach everyone and anyone. Oh, sorry. Jumped ahead. Okay. Also, just for clarification points, YouTube is a free video sharing website that makes it easy to watch online videos, and that's really its main focus is video content. You can upload videos you've seen, or you can create your own and share those with others. As the platform grows, you as an individual have the opportunity to reach millions of folks with your videos, and oftentimes the videos that are uploaded should be shared and seen and commented on by millions of people, depending on who's sharing it. As for public health messaging, YouTube has a tremendous potential to both support public health efforts as well as potentially hinder it, depending on the amount of time and effort you put into whatever you're creating. In order to use YouTube more efficiently, it's best to focus on creating more and more content more often. And that is really true for most all social media platforms, but with YouTube, since it is only video, that does require a certain level of intensive commitment around what you are choosing to create. Next, we wanted to focus on Grindr, which is the world's largest social networking app for gay, bi, trans, and queer folks. And they have on average 3.8 million daily active users. Like Facebook, Grindr offers banner ads, which can help convey public health messaging, particularly around sexual health, including HIV prevention messaging. And like Facebook as well, their ads can be targeted and tailored towards specific regions or communities. However, having more personalized messages, around the community that it's serving has been found, depending on where you look, it's been found to be very helpful in terms of when we use banner ads in apps like Grindr or even within Facebook. And just so you could see just a little bit, in case you're not familiar, these are images from actual Grindr app in terms of how they are implementing and integrating public health messaging into their app. So as you can see, there's an opportunity to put your HIV status or the last test date you had. You can set if you would like a testing reminder. There are sexual health FAQ sections. And all of the FAQ sections will provide information and give you the sources so you can go find the appropriate experts for whatever information you're looking at. They've also included information on where you can get PrEP or what is PrEP. It's really been helpful to facilitate conversations, as well as in some ways normalize integrating sexual health into a healthy relationship or whatever that may look like for you as an individual. And we also wanted to mention building healthy online communities. This is not necessarily a social media app, but is really been as a consortium of public health leaders who have worked with various gay dating websites and apps to further support HIV and STI prevention online. So really the increased integration between what we've seen on Grindr and other apps around public health initiatives and messaging. A lot of that work has been because of the partnership with building healthy online communities. The other part is that building healthy online communities exists to further connect individuals who may be frequenting those apps or individuals who work within the field to facilitate more conversation and connect with each other more intentionally. So for example, building healthy online communities has several different public health prevention initiatives that you can access on their website. To the left, you'll see how the Take Me Home initiative, which is the ability to request free HIV self-testing kits that will be mailed to your home. And they come in discrete packages, which is really useful for individuals who may not be ready to go into the clinic, but provides a lot of information, as well as connects them with agencies and organizations who have HIV support services in their region. The other initiative that they have, which is more recent, is the Tell Your Contacts initiative. And this is a way for you to text or email an individual you may have had sex with, and let them know that you may have been exposed to an STI or that you tested positive for an STI, so that they can then go and get themselves tested. It's anonymous and discreet, and again, it's just another way of creating a little bit more trust and vulnerability for individuals who may not do this outside of the internet. So as we consider social media, as with everything, there's always advantages and challenges. So as part of the advantages, we know that social media is an opportunity to connect to and engage with community, friends, family. The audience isn't limited. And that it's a two-way connection. It's not just sending a message out and hoping that it's received well. There's that ability to have that feedback almost instantaneously. For the most part, it is free and open to all. However, we do know that when we are trying to actually message or be intentional about using social media for messaging, that there may be fees associated with that. There's also an ability to tailor content and focus it depending on who you're hoping to reach or what community is responding to, as well as there's that ability to immediately change it if it's needed. And then also too, it allows for different mediums. So it can be video, it can be photos, it can be text, and it's ever changing. So there's always going to be a new sort of platform that allows for something different. However, when we look at the challenges, it is important to acknowledge that social media is very time intensive, and that there's a requirement for agencies and organizations to be constantly and consistently engaged. And it's not something that you can just do in passing or give to the youngest person on staff because you think that they may use social media. It really requires planning and development and wanting to ensure that that social media is grown within your organization, not just an afterthought. As we said earlier, there's constant content creation, as well as data management. You can get a lot of data from Facebook, but you have to do the work to understand how you want to use that data or what is useful to you. And like I said, the internet moves fast and changes quickly. So there may be a new platform out that folks may not be as familiar with, but is getting more attention from the community you're hoping to engage. So you always have to be on the lookout for that. Before we move on to our partners at Kaiser, one last thing we want to look at is what we're calling non-traditional technology modalities. So these are things that we may not traditionally think of as like social media may be able to be supported by technology, but we may be using them in non-traditional ways. There's not a lot of information out around it, but it's, as we move forward with social distancing, as well as adapting to the realities of barriers and challenges within reaching communities, we can always turn to the traditional modalities we've used, but throwing a technological twist to it. So how do we use mobile-based interventions effectively to engage folks using digital technology? What can that look like? As well as using tablets, which are technology, but have the ability to operate off of internet. So not necessarily needing to be connected to online usage in order to be used within community. So we did some research on this, and most of what we found has been from global examples. So this is not something that we are finding a lot of information on right now, but we are hoping that as we move forward with ending the HIV epidemic and adapting to what is happening with COVID-19, that thinking through ways in which traditional modalities can be adapted to digital technology is something that we are hoping we can explore within this opportunity overall. And the last thing I'll say is key considerations when we think through this. So some of the successes we've seen is that participatory approach really is motivated by local community members as they need to take a proactive role. And in order to minimize information bias, there needs to be more grassroots level work that really informs the evidence that these could potentially support further community engagement. And some of the challenges that we've seen is that this has really been a piecemeal application across various regions and communities. And that could really impact a cohesive health communication process or even public health messaging. And because this is not widely researched, the process in order to get that information and build capacity and effectiveness requires a lot of steps, as well as a lot of effort put in by the individuals who are doing it. So now I want to pass it on over to our colleagues over at Kaiser Family Foundation, and they will be expanding on a little bit more of what we were talking about. One second. Robin, I'm going to pass it on over to you now.
Good afternoon, this is Robin Kistler. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Awesome, it's working. Thank you so much, Christina. And I think you should be able to see a PowerPoint slide, nice big blue and white. My role for Kaiser Family Foundation is working as a health department liaison for Greater Than AIDS. And what we'd like to spend our portion of the presentation talking about are some real world examples of using the platforms that Christina just outlined for social media, specifically engaging community around HIV topics. This is part of what we do all day, every day. So we've tried to take a few examples that will hopefully ignite and excite some opportunities for you in your community. And we look forward to following up with you after the presentation with any ways that we may be able to help. Just quickly about KFF, the Kaiser Family Foundation. We are a leading organization for health issues in the US, and for the last 2 decades, we've run some of the top national and international media campaigns on HIV and other issues. If you've been in the field for a while, if you're at least as old as I am, you may remember seeing HIV messages on MTV, BET, Univision, CBS, Fox, and others over the years, and those are all part of KFF's work. Building on those efforts, in 2009, KFF launched Greater Than AIDS. We're celebrating actually our 10th anniversary. We're still in our 10th year, and we are a national focused initiative, but we do also put a special lens on some of the most impacted communities, which for us is the South, Black and Latinx folks, MSM and transgender individuals, and others. And a big part of why we created Greater Than AIDS was to support the work of health departments and CBOs in reaching people in those high need areas. So everything that we make is intended to support your work. If you see something you like, it is available to you to use in your community. There's no cost for using our designs or videos. We really hope these are tools to help you engage in your areas. And as you'll see, our messages hit all of the EHE pillars. We're very aligned with the national strategy. We work on the diagnose testing piece, the prevention piece of PrEP and other mechanisms, treatment, access, understanding undetectable. And of course, everything we do, we are working against the stigma associated with HIV. And I think one of the important takeaways of today's webinar is that social media has the potential to reach at such a scale that you really can move the dial in public attitudes about HIV in communities most affected. So now I'd like to turn it over to my co-conspirator, my colleague, Jenny Anderson, who heads our digital strategy, including managing our social media with over 500,000 followers. And she's going to take us through some specific examples.
Great. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much, Robin. I'm really excited to be here with all of you today. We have a lot to cover, so we will dive right in. We know there are many social platforms out there, and today we're going to focus on the ones you see on the screen. As you heard from Christina, there's TikTok and others. That will have to be a follow-up webinar just because there's so much to cover. But we are excited to cover these with you today. So when we focus on these channels, we're going to give you examples, like Robin said, of how we use each one of these. And we're usually doing this in partnership with a health department or a CBO. And our end goal here is to inspire you with ideas about how you can use these in your own work. And as we look at each platform, we'll talk about what you can do for free, as well as what you can do with a budget for paid promotion, no matter what your budget size might be. You'll also see that the examples we're looking at today, we've shown them on people's phones, and the reasons we've done that is we know for at least for Greater Than AIDS, and this reflects, I think, national statistics that we're seeing, that 90% of our traffic, actually over 90% of the traffic to our website is on mobile. So So we're always building things and thinking about things with a mobile first lens. And that's why we wanted to show you those examples that way today. So let's go ahead and jump in here. We're going to look at our first slide. We're going to take a look at Facebook. So we know there is a lot of conversation around Facebook right now, and it is both good and bad. But the reality is, as we saw on Christina's slide, is Facebook still is one of the most widely used platforms. And we not only know are people checking it, but they're checking it multiple times a day. So one of the ways people use Facebook is, likely how many of us use it personally. You can post your age, you can post photos or videos or text or links to resources. And it's an opportunity to really engage in a conversation. And that's the beauty of social media, right? Is it's conversational, it's community building. And while Facebook is free, as we heard earlier, it does take time to plan, post, and monitor, especially comments. The other thing with Facebook is the way their algorithm works is not everyone who follows or likes your page will automatically see whatever content you post. And that's where we say, you see the play and where you have resources put behind your promotions that can make a big difference. And one of the ways we use Facebook a lot with a lot of our partners is to use ads to promote HIV services and other information, whether that's linking people to HIV testing services near them or where folks might be able to find tests for free or low cost. We've also seen for us, Facebook is one of the platforms where we've had the highest click-through to other online resources over our website or over the services. Another thing with Facebook is it has some of the best options to reach very specific audiences. For example, you can focus on ads by age or geography or interest, behaviors, and other things. So for example, if you wanted to reach MSM or people with interest or Spanish speakers, Facebook really allows you to do that really well. And lastly, the other thing we find pretty helpful with Facebook is it has real-time metrics dashboard, which means you're able to constantly monitor and adjust your campaign along the way and make real-time changes as needed. Okay, so next slide, we're going to just quickly talk through what are the elements when we're talking about an ad on Facebook. So starting at the top here quickly, you can see you have your sponsoring Facebook account, which includes the organization posting the ad as well as the name and logo. Next, you have your display URL, your referral. When we run ads for health departments, it's a great prominent way to bring localization in. This is an ad we ran with the Louisiana Department of Health with a custom, very consumer-friendly URL. You can see here, endinghiv.news.org. So while we were delivering this ad through the Greater Than AIDS account, we used this section to call out partners and really, localize the information there. Then we have the headline, which you'll want to be short and informative. And then next is the visual, which can be either an image or a video. And again, you really want this to be something that's eye-grabbing and going to really pull people into your ad. And connected with the image is the text at the top of the ad. And this is where you can just add some additional content. And lastly is the call to action. This is what you want people to do. So they want to click there to learn more, get links to services or to a website where they can get additional information. So what we're going to
Jenny?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Is there any way you can move the speaker around? It's getting kind of hard to hear.
Oh, apologies for that. Is that any better?
No, you sound a little bit further.
Does that help at all?
Did that sound better? Not sure.
Okay. I'm doing it through a phone.
Okay, is that working for folks? Any better?
Yeah, let's give it a shot, and then if it's not working for folks, just let us know in the chat.
Okay, apologies, and I can call in through the phone if that's easier.
Thanks, Jenny. It sounds good.
Okay, let's give it a try. Apologies. Okay, So what I was going to say here is next, we're going to, in this ad here, this is Nicole, who is one of our Greater Than AIDS ambassadors. And she, in this ad, is talking about PrEP. So we're going to just quickly watch Nicole's story, and then we'll watch a few other very short videos today to really give you a sense of the types of content we use across platforms. And most of the videos we create come in many different lengths, really thinking about which one works best for which channel. So let's go ahead and take a very quick look at Nicole's story.
We have no idea what life is going to bring us, but we can't prepare for it. PrEP is a pill that you take once a day. PrEP allows me to be in control of my sexual health. I always say PrEP may not be for you, but sister, everybody should know it. For more information about greaterthan.org.
Jenny, are you still there? It sounds like Jenny may be having some audio issues. So this is Robin Kistler. I'll jump back in and pick up for her. So I think we were looking at that video as an example. We literally have hundreds of videos at Greater Than AIDS that you are welcome to use in advertising, promotions, pulling into your websites. Those personal, real stories and amplifying voices, particularly of communities most affected, can go a long way in reducing stigma and making your ads look great. You know, they're really high quality, well produced. We put lots of time and effort and focus groups and research into creating them all. So think about these as free resources you're able to use as you're building out your own campaigns. Next, we'll take a quick look at Instagram. It's very similar to Facebook. In fact, it is owned by Facebook. So they're more and more blending. It doesn't quite have the volume as we had looked at the beginning of who's using what, but it does tend to have a younger audience, and it's very visually focused. So again, using images and videos to catch folks' attention. There are several ways to share information on Instagram. The ad setup is pretty similar. Again, you have your sponsoring account. It's important to think about who's serving it, you know, where it's coming from and how that affects the trust of the audience. And again, you're looking at an image or a video and the text to include. You want to be thoughtful about all of the components working together and reinforcing to achieve the goals of your campaign. Again, a call to action with the ads. Here's an example.
Great. I'm back. Can folks hear me, I hope?
Yes, I can hear you, Jenny.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So as a reminder, the video Robin just showed is available with all the other videos we have on our site and other graphics available for all of you all to use. So we encourage you to do that. So now, while we're still on Instagram, we wanted to talk very briefly about stories, which is another way to feature your content. It's a really popular form. It's also an option on Facebook, and it tends to be kind of fun, less polished content. And you can access them from the main feed on the top of your home feed. Anything posted on your story will disappear after 24 hours. And the content's really designed for vertical. That's kind of optimized for that. And lastly, unlike a regular post, where when you have text that's below the image, in this case, on your stories, you can overlay things like filters and stickers and fun things on top of your video or image. So the story we're about to watch is something that came about as part of our National HIV Testing Day activation last year. And it highlights some of the partners, local organizations all over the country that participated in this free HIV testing event. We'll take a quick peek.
Today is National HIV Testing Day. I'm imploring everybody to get tested because we will not all be infected by HIV, but we're all affected by it.
Don't hate me for jumping in. This is Robin. I'm going to stop that one in the middle because I think we're running a little bit behind schedule. And move now from Instagram stories onto YouTube, which Christina had shared at the beginning is a super popular, one of the most watched platforms, but maybe also one of the most challenging for health departments and CBOs to really play an active role in, since video content creation can be fairly intensive and our message review and there are some other barriers, I think, to participating actively in YouTube. So thinking about YouTube, first and foremost, as a search engine, when people are looking for information, including about HIV, they are looking to Google for what they can find. We have an opportunity to show longer videos here and really provide substantial content because we can engage with our viewers in a more substantial way than a 30-second video ad, on other traditional and digital platforms. So I wanted to show an example of a video that we've been showing, running ads together in partnership with the Texas Department of Health in 5 priority counties for them. Let's take a look and meet Raul.
Living in a border town with Hispanic parents, I had not heard about HIV as much as I would have wanted to. I was diagnosed very late, so I had some complications. I actually ended up in the hospital, and that's the way that I found out about my diagnosis of HIV. The hospital linked me to a local clinic that treats clients with HIV. I knew that there was some type of treatment, but I didn't know how it worked. I'm not cured. HIV is still in my body, but with medication taken daily, I can reduce it to a very low amount. Undetectable means that the virus is no longer harming my immune system, and it also means that I can't transmit it to anyone else.
I wish we were all in the same room and we could take a minute to share our impressions of that video. I think for me, the personal stories and the real experiences of individuals do so much to dispel the myths of having a look or to build empathy around what it's like to receive a diagnosis, and also educating about advances in HIV treatment, understanding HIV undetectable. So we use all of these videos as tools across all the platforms. And again, just remember, you can choose the geography where you're showing, you can choose the audiences, and the strength of social media promotions is that you can pick who you want to show them to and prioritize what tend to be not enormous budgets. I'm going to skip Twitter. You saw early on, it doesn't have the most viewers. It can be a piece in some strategies. For us, it's generally not the most cost effective, but can be an important place to be depending what you're trying to achieve. And let's focus instead a bit more on the dating apps. I think this is a really underutilized area for health departments and CBOs. I know some are actively using, but it's one of the easiest actually to get set up. They have a DIY do-it-yourself platform. You just need the images and a website to link them to. We're happy to provide you the images, and we have a set across most of the HIV topics, and then you could direct it to your own website or something we would work on together. This is an example of an ad campaign we've run for the last 3 weeks for Delaware around self-testing. They have a bunch of OraQuick tests at 6 different agencies, so we've been running these to reach MSM. in their area, and then connect them to a web page that lists the agencies where they can request the kit. So definitely encourage you all to check out, if you're in a jurisdiction that won't chop off your heads for using an MSM dating app, it can be a really cost-effective and very focused way to reach a priority population. The last messages we're going to show today are actually some of our most recent. They're in the series with the video that Jenny showed you about the importance of ARVs and the immune system staying healthy, particularly in the time of COVID. These are developed recognizing how much of a drop-off there's been, particularly in testing, some folks dropping out of PrEP, and the importance of staying connected to care during COVID for people living with HIV. So there are actually oodles of them. These are just a couple of examples about, you know, we're still open, call, make an appointment, we're keeping you safe, self-test, teleprep, telehealth. A lot of messages really designed particularly for this time period that I think you'll be seeing coming out from us over the next few months. And we would love to partner with you all. If there's one takeaway for today, I think thinking about how we could collaborate to use this stay connected, stay healthy theme for the services that you're calling to mind in your area. We'd be really glad to do that. So I'm going to hopefully turn it back to Jenny for some final takeaways.
Yeah, so in the interest of time, we will breeze through these. As you saw today, there are a lot of great platforms out there to help extend the reach of your messages, and even small budgets can go a long way. We always start with who your audience is, who you're trying to reach, what the goals are, and then if you have a budget, what does that look like? And then really think about the messages and formats. As we mentioned, Greater Than AIDS has a huge toolkit of graphics and videos that we encourage you to use. And as we mentioned too, one of the benefits of digital is you can receive a lot of real-time metrics, which allow you to tweak and tailor your campaigns as you go. And depending on the platform, it's important always to keep an eye on comments. And lastly, you know, as we've shared today, we have a lot of expertise in this area. We are more than happy to help. So just ask us. And our last slide, just want to wrap by saying, you know, we're excited to together end HIV with all of you. We are a partner here. Don't hesitate to reach out. And please stay connected, stay healthy, connect with us via social, and there's our email. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Robin and Jenny. We really appreciate it. Now we're going to be switching over to see how all of this is being applied in real life situations. I'd like to welcome our guest, Jeremy Turner, Director of the HIV STD Viral Hepatitis Division at the Indiana State Department of Health, who will be sharing with us how they are using digital technology to communicate with and engage their community. Jeremy, whenever you are ready.
Hi there, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today. We don't have much time left, and unfortunately, I have a 3 o'clock. So if there are questions, I'd be happy to answer them, and I'm sure that you can access my contact information from the slides today. But we're going to talk about the work that we've been doing for a while here in Indiana. And, you know, it's kind of an interesting journey for me to be the director at the state when previously I started about 16 years ago actually delivering services. It started in prevention, and then after about 7 years of that, moved to HIV services, housing, supportive services. And then eventually being the Vice President of Development and Communication at Indiana's largest HIV service organization, where I was in charge of our online presence. And so in a state like Indiana, about half of the people living with HIV live in Indianapolis or the Marion County area. And then the other half of folks live outside of that, more in the rural areas of the state. And so you could imagine with the diversity of the people that we serve, but also the organizations providing the services, there was a lot of disparity in the online presence of our HIV service organizations. And so we've been in a multi-year project with a company called Cineco that has a division called Continued that's been working with our organizations. And leading up to this, we've been partnering with the Indiana AIDS Fund, which is a foundation based in Indianapolis that provides prevention and care grants to all HIV service organizations, at least in some amounts, and our Ryan White Part A district here in Indianapolis to fund Indiana AIDS Fund to lead the charge to improve the digital presence of our HIV service organizations. And that started first with building their platforms on Facebook and rebuilding their websites, bringing everything up to date, because we had to have somewhere to direct people to once we began these robust online campaigns. And so one of the great things about Cineco is they spend a lot of time in doing that, meeting one-on-one with people living with HIV in all of the different communities where they receive services in Indiana. We can go ahead and move to the next slide. So we've got two different projects that we're going to touch briefly on here. And so Continued utilizes artificially intelligent programmatic advertising to target high-risk populations and connect them with providers in their area. The goal of this project is to connect status unaware individuals with care and then reconnect those people who've disengaged from care. And so we've heard a lot about the different kinds of platforms and how people interact with them, but I'm sure that many of you listening now understand that it's not simply just putting content out there, and there have been several references to the need to target that. And if you have the resources to put additional money behind making sure that your message is getting in front of people. And so, I recall doing Dining Out for Life, and you can put out as much information as you want to, and then you get 8 or 9 likes on something and maybe 50, 60 views. But it is so helpful, and particularly I think from my position now, to have funded this project through the Health Foundation, where they found the right people to work with every agency and make sure that each agency in the state has the same kind of access to engage with their populations and the opportunity to tailor that based on the epi information and the risk behaviors and just behaviors in general of the people that they're serving across a large geographic area. We can go to slide 3 now. So as we talked about, using the epi data and qualitative data from ASOs, we identify where the highest risk folks for contracting HIV are, as well as trying to find those people that were lost to care. We use that data to create marketing audiences segmented by demographic variables and zip code to build identity-based marketing campaigns designed to encourage engagement. These campaigns are shown across 50 million different web and mobile platforms, and they're consistently shown to high-risk individuals until they engage with the ad and schedule an appointment. And we do all kinds of different visual and audio aids in making sure that that's relevant to the people that we're trying to reach. But then once people have engaged with an ad, they're taken to a HIPAA-compliant online scheduling platform where they can schedule their testing appointment in real time. And that provides a transactional experience that is shown to improve conversion rates. So when individuals attend their appointments, they then complete an intake questionnaire on a tablet, and that data is provided to each AIDS service organization in real time. So that allows them to filter by any combination of factors to create advanced reports about the populations that they're serving. This project has been able to secure more than 600 HIV testing appointments. They're finding a lot of success with driving status unaware HIV positive individuals into testing at a rate as high as 4.5% of all booked appointments at sites in different parts of the state. So we're looking forward to seeing how this continues to benefit folks. But I also wanted, as we're on today's chat, and because of the title of what we're talking about and everything that's happening with COVID-19, to discuss another project that we have going with Continued. And if we can move to the next slide. So this is going to be more about keeping people retained in care and making sure that they have good access to staying engaged with service providers. So in response to COVID-19, many organizations stopped seeing their clients in person. And so we launched this patient tablet access platform that gave ASOs the ability to deploy telehealth, optimized tablets to clients facing barriers to accessing telemedicine. These are 8-inch tablets with mobile data connections, so people don't have to have access to the internet in order to meet with their healthcare providers. And each client's tablet is customized to include the tools necessary for successful intervention as determined by their care team. And so things can be added or removed as needed. So we can move to the next slide now. So with the landscape of telemedicine rapidly changing, particularly in response to COVID, this is a highly flexible service model that can evolve with mobile health interventions over time. As organization and client needs change and new methodologies are implemented, these devices can be updated to take advantage of the latest and greatest tools while providing clients with a frictionless path to accessing care and education. So when we use these platforms, we expect to see trends that follow the trajectory of studies that we've seen from other organizations in other states, where retention and care benchmarks will increase and higher rates of suppression will be achieved. And we will be reporting on that and making sure that, you know, we make ourselves available and put out any information that we do gather as we continue on with that project. You know, I think that when we have such a geographically diverse state here, where the client service experience can vary greatly, one of the other things that we did that's not related to the advertising of services was to eliminate barriers around access to care. And so over the course of the past 3 years, we've made heavy investments to make sure that every HIV service organization that originally in the 80s, Indiana funded as community action groups that were community grassroots organizations just trying to meet the needs of folks with HIV before the Ryan White Care Act. And many of those CAGs grew up to be our nonprofits that are providing care now. But we have made sure that we've closed the gap on making sure that the supportive services are available. But in addition to that, that clinical services are available in a one-stop shop system of care. And so when folks are engaging online and through these various different mechanisms, whether it's Grindr, Scruff, you know, and even Google optimization, all kinds of different things, that when they get directed to the care site, that they're not having to go a lot of different places in order to engage in care and stay sustained in care, that they can go to that one place and get everything that they need. And so I think that that's been another important preparation that we made in advance of implementing this project. So that's it in a nutshell. That's my micro machines talk. I look forward to seeing what we have here. And even though I'm not able to stay on the call at this time, I would love to answer any questions that can be emailed to me, or feel free to give me a call anytime.
Thank you, Jeremy. Just so we know, we have just a couple minutes left, so we're going to jump into maybe one question. But for all the questions that we don't get to, what we're going to do is make sure we jot those questions down, and then we will get those questions answered and add them to the end of this presentation when we send out the recording and slides. So Nicole, maybe we could just start off with one question, and then if Jeremy has time, he can answer that, and then we can hop off and we'll move to the other questions if there's time.
Great, thanks. So one question was, do you have a sample social media plan? What are all included in the plan? And given the pandemic, does it impact or influence one's social media plan?
Was that for me?
It could be for anyone.
You know, I think that from my perspective, at least from the state, we have funded the Health Foundation of Greater Indianapolis, who administers Indiana AIDS Fund, to be the kind of fiscal agent, where they selected the vendor who was going to be working with each individual site. And so instead of having one plan that's ruled from kind of downtown Indianapolis, each care region has their own plan that they established with the HIV service organization and a continuum of care committee that operates in each place. And so I don't have one plan. There are many plans, if that is at all helpful.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I know we're pressed for time, but I do want to say that we will be jotting these questions down and sending out questions and answers to everyone. And just as a reminder, there are more extensive trainings available from NASDAQ regarding community engagement, culture of humility, responsiveness, as well as social marketing, social media use, which does delve a little bit deeper into social media planning. And then as well as we will be attaching one of the resources we have, which looks at more intentional exercises for meaningful community engagement through social marketing. So thank you everyone for joining us today. As a reminder, this webinar was recorded, and we will be getting that recording and the slides as well as resources and the questions out to everyone within the week. We do have one more webinar in the series, so be on the lookout for the date of that, which should be coming in the next couple of weeks. Thank you everyone and have a good day.